Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Rodger from Recruitment.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of recruitment tech and AI experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today.
Hey guys, well today BK and I are going to do something a little bit different. We've done it a couple of times before and it's just having a general roundtable chat. The world is changing so rapidly, we thought we'd take a pause from doing an interview with a guest to do a bit of a market wrap around what is happening, a bit of a pulse check in April 2026. So the last 6 months, BK, I don't know for you, it's just been a whirlwind of change. I wake up every day to a couple of emails of this is what's changed in the world of AI, and it's every single day. I know Anthropic's dropping stuff, and I know from an internal source there that they've got so much banked up that they just can't release yet, mainly because of data server space. So when they get that problem solved out, it's going to be an interesting month of delivery for those guys.
Interesting you say that, because I was on Claude the other day and it had to have a bit of a pause. It said, I haven't got enough data bandwidth or whatever. I was like, oh, is my internet down? I was like, no, it was Claude. Only for a minute, but that makes sense.
Demand is just massive. Demand is massive. They're, you and I are based in Oz, and they're building out the server here, which just shows that they've got to, keep building these servers so that they can meet that demand set. But, obviously there's been a big shift from ChatGPT for a lot of people through to Claude. They're just being overwhelmed, I think. It's an exciting time to be alive, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what are you seeing? What are the main things that you're seeing? Look, I think the new 6 months is now like 2 weeks. What we'd see changing in 6 months, we're seeing in 2 weeks. It's a bit like, blue is the new black or whatever. But what are you seeing in the last, let's just call it the last month or so, or that you're sort of going, oh, this is interesting?
Yeah. Well, interesting. Just taking, I guess, a snapshot of the market itself. And when you and I play in the recruitment sector, and I was just looking the other day, and apparently it's a 5.5 billion sector by the 2030 mark. So it's currently valued about 3.7 billion in terms of software. You and I are having just an interesting conversation offline around vibe coding. We'll probably get to that in a little bit more detail. But that software market is a very big point on a lot of radars for boardroom level investment. It's not a niche tech spend by any means. So I think with that big of a market, there's going to be a lot of focus, particularly from companies leveraging AI. Both saw last year, 2025, I guess the macroeconomic conditions were pretty unpredictable. So, there was a little bit of holding off. And plus, I guess the wave of AI was still building. But I think it's at the stage where if you're not doing something, you're forever getting 1 foot, 2 foot, 100 feet behind everybody else in the marketplace.
So in my growth club, I'm just, talking to my cohort of founders, sort of between 1 to 10 people, so not huge businesses, that the ones that were really just didn't want to know about it, and now they're starting to trial tools and do things, so they're not totally being left behind, which is good. But the others that did adopt earlier obviously are a little bit further ahead. But I think that if they can dive in now, they're just getting in the nick of time. So it's nice to see that change and hear them talking about tools that, I did wonder sort of 6-12 months ago how they would go. They just weren't into it at all, but that's changed. So that's a good thing. The other thing I'm seeing, and it makes perfect sense, is a lot more AI consultants, so people who can actually come in and help you embed.
Analyze and design.
Thank you. Yeah, analyze and design your proper workflows, which for busy founders is amazing. And I think that's going to be certainly money well spent.
Yeah. In terms of, I know you love your numbers. I was reading a report the other day, and firms using AI at any stage of the recruitment process are now estimated to be 3.5 to 4.5 times more likely to have growth in revenue, somewhere between 25 to 40% increase in revenue than if they weren't using that. So for small to mediums, for large companies, and sometimes I reckon your target market size, BKs, can get more leverage, because if they're a solopreneur or maybe with 1 or 2 offsiders, there's not a lot of time to do stuff manually anymore, right? And that old adage around AI is not coming for your job, it's somebody using AI is coming for your job, I think it's ever more important to have firmly implanted in your psyche. That report I was looking at said last year, 2025, 52% of firms were only experimenting with basic generative AI. This year, 26, 29%. So it's dropped down at that stage, but the rest have gone in, and about 30% have moved to some level of agentic AI. So it doing stuff in the background without you going, yes, more information, ChatGPT. So that big risk is really the competitor already using AI is the threat, not the AI system itself. I don't know about, what do you think?
And the whole workflow piece, I think what excites me about that is because that's where it becomes really practical.
Yes.
You know, I used to do that. Now I don't have to. AI can do that. And you can see what that looks like. You know, you've got Google Gemini. It can obviously go in. If you've got Google Workspace, it can go in and do all sorts of fun stuff in there. I mean, even just as simple as like, find me this file. Obviously, it's a lot more than that. But the workflow piece to me is the most exciting.
Yeah. And what I've seen in the last 12 months, much more so in the last 6 months, AI first platforms coming into our space where that AI intelligence runs throughout the whole workflow within the platform. Whereas let's call them older SaaS platforms that were developed more than a couple of years back are snapping things onto the side. So they're bolting stuff on. So that's completely AI first agentic style play is available for people to buy now. So I think it's going to be really interesting for those older platforms to compete, to be honest, in the next 12 to 18 months. As people cycle through their fixed term contracts with their provider, I would be putting my hand up saying, hey, what is out there before I re-sign my contract with product X that may not be AI first?
What's stopping them from being on its head? Is it just money?
It's money. I mean, and I guess you've got to, if you're a large SaaS provider with thousands, hundreds of thousands of users on there, it's very difficult for them to pick up an old school platform and then flip it through to a agentic AI first play. It's almost like you develop that to one side and then migrate everybody across at a certain stage. And, that's, again, a risk point. I've seen it before where things were on a server-based databases moved to the cloud so they could be accessed anywhere. That conversion is very similar to what we're talking about here is, the old development cycle and the old technology base moving so it incorporates AI as a first play.
And it's also, you don't know what you don't know till it happens. When I sold my first business, it was sort of the early days of cloud computing, and the company that bought me was a UK company and they wanted everything on the cloud, and my IT guys were going, this isn't going to work, like it's too early. And they were like yeah. So they did it. And then what happened was it was taking a minute to open every CV. Well, you can imagine how that went down. Well, actually, my IT guys did predict it. They said it's not going to work. And the guys in UK were like, their IT guys like, no, it'll be fine. And it was too late. Once we'd done the rollout. That's probably a good analogy for what people need to look at when they're looking at new tools now.
Yeah, the good news, I think, for people listening or viewing this today is that the risk becomes smaller. I think with the technology base, it's much more intelligent.
I think now is a good time for a transmission break to say, just to let everybody know that Andrew's doing some renovations in his house today.
Yeah,
and if you sound
there could be some background noise.
Yes, there is definitely some background noise, but bear with us.
Yeah, back to the roadshow. Because I think what's the next phase of AI in recruitment tech or talent acquisition tech is that it's completely agentic. So it means that the AI system that handles operational tasks, admin stuff, but it happens autonomously. It could be outreach sequences that automatically happen behind the scenes, obviously given frameworks by the business to say, this is the style of thing I want you to do, but they just go off and run. Interview scheduling, which I know is a big bugbear for a lot of people with client interview scheduling.
That's pretty much solved now, isn't it? Wouldn't you say?
I think so. There's definitely tools out there that you and I know both really well. But what I see is, unfortunately for some of those third-party tools, it's going to be all built in the one deck. So you'll have those tools inside the core platform itself. If you just step along the workflow there, you've got your scheduling, you might have reference checking next. That again, there's a number of third-party tools that do an amazing job, but I forecast those to be completely embedded within the system. A couple of different ways that could happen. It could be via text message referencing, which a lot of third parties use, or what's becoming more and more popular, an AI avatar rings up. Could be my voice that it's been tuned to, or your recruiter's voice doing the reference checks, but it's an AI system that's calling the referees, introducing itself as such, and gathering information. I mean, the voice AI is so good now, BK, you'd have to agree that it's almost getting to that stage it's impossible.
Not just that, it's super smart into where to take the conversation, taking it from that age, if I've got the right terminology here, taking it from that chat to the agentic AI, where it can reply with a smarter response.
When AI first came out, it couldn't do that maybe intelligent, I guess, understanding of a pause or an inflection in somebody's voice when they answer in a certain way. But the tech is there to pick up on those inferences and maybe probe into, say, oh, Andrew, you just said such and such. Really interested about, do you mind if we dive into that a little bit more about Pete or whoever you're reference checking? And for a whole bunch of different stages along our recruitment cycle, there's just so many things that you could plug into it, but it's going to be built. Sorry,
what I find really interesting about this too is that even though the people on the other end know that it's AI, and I'm assuming people are saying, if they're smart, they're saying it is an AI, because I think that the whole thing of pretending you're human when you're AI just does my head in. But even if the person knows it's AI, I think in some ways we still treat it as it's not. Like I do this with pick your tool that I'm using on the day, let's just call it Claude, because that's flavor of the month at the moment. And I'll just talk away to it. And I know it's not human, but I talk to it like it's human. It brings up the odd joke and I laugh like it's human. So I think at some level, even then we know the person asking for the reference is AI, even if we're told it is, we still respond like it's not. If it's making you feel good and it's doing a good job, I think we're at the point where we're okay with that.
I think so. And I don't know about you, but I think you highlight that a bit there, is if you are engaging either written or voice with an AI system, if it's responding in a purposeful way, diving into the right parts of the conversation, reacting in a comical way in some parts of the conversation, then the person at the other end of that conversation just forgets, I think, that it's not a real person they're talking with. Some people have an issue with that, but I think we will be at a stage in a very short period of time where we go, well, why would a human call to do that part of the conversation? Why aren't they prioritizing more important sections of the recruitment lifecycle with the human? And, why are they wasting time on this part of the process? So, these AI plays are really freeing recruiters for those conversations that truly matter to close placements.
We're at that point, maybe with that, where we are with your example about the ATM. Like no one would go into the bank and stand in a queue for 20 minutes now to get money. They go to the ATM rather. Whereas, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, you'd go, I'll go in and have a chat to my teller or whatever. But now you just see that as a waste of time. So it's just perceptions are changing.
You don't know what's happening with the banks, the retail front banks, they're disappearing. They've evolved to do online transactions. I don't know, I can't think of the last time I've withdrawn money from an ATM. There's a whole different conversation about that.
Do you know what I'm finding, and I think this is a really good lesson for recruitment companies, is that if you look at what's happening with customer, like automated replies, if you're buying something online, like I bought something from the US the other day, and about 5 minutes later, I realized that they'd billed me twice. It was kind of half my fault, half theirs. It was confusing. Anyway, I emailed them straight away and I said, I've done this. I bought two instead of one. I said, can you refund one of them? Yes, thank you, Belinda. We're so sorry you've had this problem. No problem at all. Send us a screenshot of the order and we'll sort that out. So I sent them a screenshot and they came back. By this point, I didn't even think it was a bot. It wasn't on my radar to think, oh, was that a bot? Didn't tweak yet. And so I sent it through and they came back and they said, oh, we can't read it. And I'm like, I still hadn't read it. I still hadn't twigged. And I said, well, I'll send it to you again. So I sent it again and they've come back and said, we can't read it. And I said, clearly you're, okay, I tweeted, I was like, look, you're a bot. Can you please put me forward to a human so I can sort this out? So they put me forward to another bot who was meant to be the human. And so anyway, this conversation went on for a bit. And then I started to get the same responses. Oh, we're so sorry. And then I got this one saying, oh, we're so sorry, Belinda. We work really quickly here and your order's just left the warehouse. We're sorry, there's nothing more we can do. And I was like, at that point, I was ready to tear my hair out. And I came back and I said, it's not on me, it's on you. You guys need to credit this. And then like, again, we're so sorry, but perhaps you could maybe see if somebody else would like the other pair. And I was like, no.
I love the objection handling. That's so good.
It was dreadful. It was totally dreadful.
I guess point there should have been a red flag in the background.
There was no red flag.
An operator picks up that conversation, the human in the loop.
Yeah, I think it's because I can just see where that can go so pear-shaped with recruitment and candidates.
Skeptically, maybe it's designed to make sure that sales sticks like mud.
Well, yeah, but what about their branding? Like the first thing I'm going to do is get onto Google and say, don't use this company.
Yeah.
Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But customer service is like, it has to be number one priority in any business. especially in today's competitive landscape.
You and I have both talked about this, a lot previously around your tribe that you deal with, be it a client or a candidate, is so much more ever important. The technology is definitely there and it's got its important place around, running a effective business. However, make sure that technology is bringing you up to spend more time with the human, your tribe member, and building those relationships ever more strongly.
Are you seeing some cool use cases with your guys at the moment, Rodger?
Yeah, I think taking away the moments that take up time, because all those moments turn into hours, or those hours turn into days. The simple things like might be floating candidate, drafting a quick 2 or 3 paragraph statement about this particular candidate and why they should think about pursuing a interview or a further time with that candidate. Those little things along the cycle have been adding up quite considerably. Resume prep has always been a big time chunk, and there's been, I guess, an evolution of outsourcing that to third parties in different countries to come back within a time frame for, I think the going rate's still about $2 Australian per prepared resume. But that's time that the consultant's just waiting on, and more often than not, they're tweaking that resume that comes back. So change has been having it inbuilt into the platform to a corporate, a company formatted resume, either upon acquisition. So a lot of tech these days have got it so that they've got your original resume against the candidate record, but then it's already done a prepared one. So when the consultant's looking at that file, there's already one there. They can then tweak that, 10% in effort as opposed to 80 or 90% effort that they were doing before. Just those, I guess, chunking it down through the process, fleshing out a very, very, very light job spec that the client's given. Sequences put in place in a number of companies I've working with at the moment. As they're putting a note in even to the system, it's then expanding upon that note based on their knowledge base to flesh that out to a full job description, advertising copy at the same time in their company's tone and voice with the bullet points, the summary paragraph at the beginning, all the stuff that you would normally do, spend maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes doing is done for them. So they're spending 2 minutes doing the tweak to that ad copy, for example, then pushing it out through to their own corporate website or paid advertising, etc.
There's so many little points along the way in recruitment, aren't there, that can be optimized by AI. There's so many touch points in what we do. So that's exciting.
I was just going to say, on this particular note, just a little tip to everybody listening. If you can provide the pathway for your teammates, they're more likely to stick to that pathway as opposed to going outside of your tech service offering. I've seen it so many times where there's companies and then they do a little internal audit. They do little surveys saying, hey, completely anonymous so that they can get some true answers. Are you sticking with our privacy guidelines, basically, or are you using third-party tech to do what you need to do on a daily basis? And so many times I've seen that come back saying, well, actually, I might do a copy and paste into ChatGPT or their choice of platform and then have it reformatted or compare resumes from 3 or 4 or 5 candidates against the job spec to come up with one they think is the best performing candidate, et cetera, et cetera. All of which time they're exposing data to the global LLMs. So be strategic. This is something that's not going to go away. I would have quarterly little checks with any provider that you're doing with to make sure, A, the data is still kept inside your ring of confidence as opposed to being used to teach the global LLMs.
What I've noticed as well is there seems to be this assumption that the AI will just be able to pull the good stuff out of the data. Yeah, and it still applies rubbish in, rubbish out. And I don't think that recruiters can just ignore the fact that they still need to be putting the right data in the system. And then if they are, then the AI is absolutely going to be able to amplify it. But you don't want bad amplified, you want good amplified. I've just heard a few people sort of say lately, well, the AI should be able to find them. Yeah, but make it easier.
Yeah, if the information's not in there, yeah. 1,000,000 times nothing is still nothing, right? So if there's nothing in the system, you've got to get nothing out, or 1,000,000 bits of rubbish will get amplified 1,000,000,000 times through AI. What I've been seeing a couple of companies start doing is recording everything that they're doing with the right permissions in place. Obviously, I don't know about you, but most of my calls that I'm on, I say at the beginning, hey, do you mind if I just take notes electronically? I've got a recorder going. Happy to share the recording with you if you'd like a copy of it after we jump off. And I've had zero pushback. I've had no people say, actually, I prefer this to be off the record conversation 0 times. So where companies are doing that, if they can push that recording into the platform, it's got a transcript thing behind it. A lot of platforms, and the AI first companies definitely do this, they'll extract the good stuff out of that conversation and then put it into the right fields within that particular database system. So it's zero data entry for the recruiter, because recruiters are absolutely horrendous at putting meaningful data in, and they shouldn't be good at that. Their focus is not on the admin side, it's on that customer relationship building and filling jobs. But to your point, nothing in, you can't amplify anything if it's got nothing to start with, or if it's rubbish data. So even if it's old data, it'll pick it up. So if I'm having a conversation with a candidate, they're looking for, 185K plus super. If in the system it's 145 from 2 years ago conversation, we'll just update that 185 overwrite the 145 field. Okay, so there's so many different elements that from that conversation that we have, it'll pick up exactly the right information to push into the right slot in the system, so that then when the AI sequence is run, it's got more meaningful data to pull into search results, etc.
Something else I'd love to know your thoughts on too, Andrew, is we know about Clay and all the integrations and how it can go out and do all the signal finding, etc. But it's still quite costly for a smaller business. But now I'm not saying I'm anywhere near Clay, but a couple of weeks ago, I went into GPT and created a hiring signal finder in a couple of hours, and it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but that was nothing. So what do you think is going to happen if you think about these sorts of products I can only imagine that the price is going to come sliding right down.
Yeah, it has to. There's so many tools that you can just jump on and do some vibe coding on now, and then build either a new website, as you just did, some sort of tool to do something very specific within an outreach sequence, or a radar around what my existing customers are doing. Have they got new jobs on their website that I should be onto? Are they advertising on the usual job boards? So many things can keep that background radar running for organizations that you would usually pay big bucks for per user per month. We'll get onto a change on that per user per month in a minute. So you're right. I think it was Friday or Thursday last week, I was speaking to a peer in the industry who sells Salesforce-based solutions. And one of his customers had vibe coded a huge amount of their workflow. This guy said to them, why didn't you just use this tool and that tool and this tool that are already within the system? He said, I had some time on my hands. I wanted to do something really specific for the organization. So I thought, I'll give it a go myself. And he's done almost perfect job.
Makes you feel so smart. I felt like I was creating something in Manus a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty big. And I remember thinking, I'm so clever. And I was like, no, you're not. You can just talk. You can tell it what you want, and it spits it all out. And I think sometimes it's just about being creative and knowing what you want the use case to be. And then there's a tool there to do it.
If you don't know, you ask, Chat or Claude, hey, what do I need to ask you to get this outcome? So start with the end in mind, work backwards. Say, this is what I want. What do you need from me to build whatever it is to get to that end point? It's really, really interesting. It's similar, and I was thinking about this the other day. Where we're up to is, I don't know what your personal hobbies are, but I'm nowhere near a carpenter level. But I can put together an IKEA bookcase pretty easily. And the platforms now are similar to that IKEA package, where there's some instructions which sometimes we'll read, sometimes we'll just give it a crack ourselves, and then maybe learn from our mistakes that shelf was upside down, so I have to take the whole thing apart again and put it back the right way up. But this, I think, is where we're at. We've got the IKEAs of the world with the different AI modules, where it's making very accessible construction of outcomes. Whereas you or I would never be able to put together a proper bookcase from scratch with planks of wood, etc., etc. Likewise, if we were having to code everything manually in Python or whatever script, it's probably not going to happen. However, now you've got so many different platforms out there, and there's new ones every day.
And what's good about these platforms is often they're in line with the user experience. So if you even think about the whole thing like Zapier and Make, you've got the lower end products like Zapier and Make, and then you can go up to N8N, and then there's others beyond that I'm not sure what they are, but it's kind of, you can find the one that's right for you. And I know with vibe coding too, there's lots of different levels. So you don't have to kind of dig deep and take on a platform that's beyond you. There's something that can be at your level, which I think is terrific as well. And obviously they're all getting better each day.
But they're also becoming more autonomous. So a number of platforms, HubSpot's a good example. If you want to do a marketing campaign, you describe what that marketing campaign is, how many email outreaches you want in that particular campaign, what the gaps are between each campaign, email drop, and it just does it all. And you can obviously tweak it once it's built it, but something which would normally take, I don't know, an hour maybe for somebody who knows their way around it, or maybe less, is there in moments. So then you can focus on the comms piece within each email, but then maybe get, I don't know, Claude to write that really interesting, in your voice or your company's voice, a call to action for each of those campaign line items.
I try and listen to quite a few people outside of recruitment, just on the general AI, as everybody is. And I was listening to something the other day, and they were saying we've pretty much moving from prompting, going in and saying, putting down in the context and what you want done, etc., to this is what I want to create, and then what do they call it? Not backwards prompting. There's a word for it.
Start with the backward planning.
Yeah, you basically ask the AI, what is that's right, here's the outcome. Now you go back and write the prompt. And so it's gone from
the best prompt.
Yeah, from you creating it to doing it that way, which I thought was cool. So I've been doing that a bit lately and finding that I'm getting much better results. Like, you tell me, ask me the questions that you need to know, then you build a prompt.
Because historically, it used to be, act as a marketing guru in the vein of these three marketing, might be Alex Hormozy or somebody like that, who's a prolific marketer. This is what I want to achieve. This is the output I needed in those kind of, there's 3 or 4 steps. So that used to be the way. But now, as you said, it's act with the outcome in mind and ask it, well, what do you need from me? Ask me 10 to 15 questions about what I want to achieve. And then you come up with the steps. You come up with the prompt that's going to be best for that outcome. And when you've nailed it, you can then ask the machine, whichever platform that you're dealing with, to write a very detailed prompt that would give you that exact answer, so you can use that again and again and keep tweaking that end result, so that you don't have to go through the iteration of answering those 17 to 20 questions, whatever it might be.
That's an interesting development. I tell you what, I heard something. Here's a little cool thing that I heard about the other day. I was listening to, again, I can't remember who it was, and they were saying that now you can, so Notebook, I'm pretty sure it was Notebook LLM. This guy, he'd actually uploaded a book from a business guru and said to the LLM, create a podcast. So the LLM created the podcast in like that. So they had, just like we're doing now, we could be that output. So the person who'd written the book plus somebody, an AI, talking to this person on the podcast. And then you could actually go in as a guest and ask questions. So how bizarre is that? All you've got is a book, you've uploaded it, and then you've got a podcast, a personal podcast, created it. And then you've got, I know there's tools out there starting to pull information in and do similar things, but I thought that was quite cool that you could actually have your own little personal podcast. And from a training perspective, how cool would that be? Like, you've got the book, you don't, you miss things, or you go through it and you just sort of pull out highlights. Even if you've read the book and then you've done something like that, and then there was that book, but what were they talking about this, right? And I can just jump back in and ask the question, what was that you said about, marketing in 2026 or whatever it was that they were talking about? And you just get the person in their voice answering you.
Side conversation a little bit, but I don't know if anybody's listened to Arnold Schwarzenegger's Arnold Pump Club. It's been around for about maybe 2 years and completely AI generated. He's got a very distinctive accent, as people would know. I think it was 11 labs for the voice, but you'd be very pressed to find that it wasn't him at first glance. Listen really deeply, you can hear things that are very similar. However, the AI modules are coming up with ways to make it more human. Putting mistakes in there, putting not obvious ums and ahs, but inflections that the human might utilize when they're processing something, and they're having a thought, and then they come back into pure play conversation. But the script's written, I think there is a crew behind the scenes to put topics together, but then it's all written via AI. Then it's pushed through mechanics of getting the voice overlay. I think it used to be something like quite a detailed process, maybe 2 to 4 hours of voice training for 11 labs, but they've brought that right down.
To seconds, probably.
Well, it's minutes now.
Minutes.
There's another platform, HeyGen, which will do avatars, and they're very, very difficult to see that they're not humans. Whereas previously, particularly the mouth and teeth were a dead giveaway for a lot of those avatars.
And the fingers. Give you 2 thumbs and stuff.
Quirky mannerisms. But yeah, 11 labs I think within an hour you can have a really strong avatar built. And to your point, it could be around onboarding, it could be around checking with for health and safety stuff, whatever your responsibilities are that most humans don't do well in that process, from placement through to ongoing care for a contractor base, maybe for labour hire, or it could be for a whole bunch of things that there are some quite heavy regulatory responsibilities for the firm to maintain throughout the level of the life of that contract.
What do you think's coming, Roger? Like, what do we got in the next, let's just keep it near term, 3 to 6 months?
Between now and the end of the year, let's call it. Okay. So I think what we'll see is continual speed of development of things. So you've got that opportunity to really pick up a lot of those chunky bits which were time intensive. What I would be doing as a recruitment firm is really knuckling down on process and understanding what my team's doing. Okay, so that's not going to change in terms of what we do as a firm, as a recruitment agency, from marketing through to looking after a contractor on site, offloading them, offboarding them, redeploying them at the end of the cycle if it's a contract gig, working out what those core milestones are. And then what I see coming is, an AI buddy for everybody who will be helping me get from one stage of that to the next milestone in the journey, doing a bunch of the non-human stuff for me between milestone 1 and milestone 2, reminding me to do things along that way, having that real strong co-worker that's a virtual co-worker that never forgets anything, always reminds me to do the next thing properly, and then keeps me on track. So I see that within the next 6 to 12 months. What's leading in the next 6 months is a lot of opportunity for people to continue running with AI plays. In our industry, I think it's it's up to about 10% now that they've reported having significant agentic workflows embedded within their work today. So there's a huge gap, that 90% that don't. It's up to those 90% to make that run. Two companies exist in the future, those that are effectively using AI and those that are out of business.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of an old conversation now, isn't it? Like, there is just no question. Like I was saying before, some of the guys that last year were saying to me, oh, no, not interested. Then I go, oh, Belinda, I'm trying this and I'm trying that. So I think that, that's kind of clear as day now that people know. And if you haven't done much to date, now's your opportunity. And I think, one of the things I say to people as well is, you think about a training budget, like just sign up to these tools, $20, $30 a month. It's a pretty low training budget, and just get in and play and break it and see what you can do. Just roll your sleeves up and play with it, even if it's just half an hour a week. You just learn so much that way. I've got so many of them open now. Like I've got Claude Co-work, I've got Google Gemini, I've got Manus. What else have I got? Something else as well, ChatGPT. And I'll start off in one. I'll say, I wonder what the other one would say about this. And then I go, hang on, what did I put in that one? And so for me, it's just like play in the mud and not a lot of structure and process to that part of it at the moment. But I'm learning so much, and then I can start to apply these things to my business and create better tools for my guys. I actually quite enjoy it. And I think if you go at it from that perspective and just play, have fun, see what's possible, that's a much more empowering place than it's going to come and take my job and I don't know what to do and I don't know which one to buy. And like, another interesting thing I heard someone say, it was Dan Martello heard say this the other day, was the tools will come and go. Everybody's so stressed about the tools and which one to buy and what to implement. He said, but they'll come and go, but the principles of business are still the same. So if you think about the theory of constraints and looking in your business as to where the bottlenecks are, and you start there, and how do you solve those constraints piece by piece, the right tech will show up. Sure, you've got to be out there and learning about it and understanding it to a point, but not to the point where you can't sleep at night because you're wondering which one to buy. Start over here with the problem. And then, we've said this before, then get the tool to solve it. But I thought that was really wise, because the principles of business won't change. The way we do business will, and the tools that we use will. But if you still come back to first principles and theories of law of constraints and those sorts of things that have applied to business forever, I think that's a strong foundational place to start.
Yeah, I think you're right. And one interesting perspective I was thinking about the other day, if you were future casting where you are in 12 months' time, what would you be embarrassed to say you're still doing manually? And that might be a good way to flip it on its head around that sort of end in mind. Where should we be focusing? Because I think you're right around the core principles won't change of what we're delivering, what we're doing, how we're doing it will change dramatically. So I think when I first was recruiting, I used for my shortlist often a bike courier was in the heart of the city to deliver my 3 or 5 resumes to the client, printed. If you did that today, would that be a little bit embarrassing? It might be some would say that might be a distinguishing feature of your service level, but really, there's other ways that you can deliver that resume much more creatively and
But to your point about, look, I know that no one's going to start hiring someone with a bike and putting CVs in it and do that. But to your point, I think AI is also highlighting some of the basics and going back to what we probably haven't done for a while. I mean, the classic one is the phone. When I phone and speak to someone now, they're surprised. And I've got founders who are saying that too. They're saying, because no one's calling, when I do call, it's actually, oh, you've actually bothered to pick up the phone and call me.
Yeah, I definitely don't. Some people say cold calls are dead, email marketing's dead. I think it's, done correctly, it's never more important.
Email marketing has never been more important. It's just that people do it badly. It takes a bit of thought to get it right. It's very easy to end up in spam. Yahoo and Google have nominated themselves as the email police. You can't even put stuff in your calendar now half the time. It used to automatically go into your calendar. Now it doesn't. So they're obviously protecting their customers as well by doing that. But it's like with everything. The companies that are prepared to take the time to do it properly will win the game, because if it's hard for everybody else, they don't do it. And I think often your opportunity in business is to double down on what's hard and the others give up on, because 99% will and do. I see it all the time. And 1% of them won't. And they go, hang on, we'll push through this and we're going to make this strategy work for us. I've been using email for years and I know that it works. And the other thing is, if you're on social media and you're relying on LinkedIn, and I'm not saying don't use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool, but you don't own it. They can throw you off at any point. If you have a community that you're communicating with regularly and it's going to them and can reach thousands of people at once, that's a pretty powerful thing to have in your business. If you don't and you're relying on social media, you're building a house on rented land.
I think you're right. I mean, that mail list is going to become ever more important moving forward, because people will be putting up a lot of barriers, because they will get bombarded, but they will trust an inner circle. And if you're part of that inner circle, you've got a free pass straight through to their eyeballs with that type of marketing.
Yeah. Partly it's about the volume, but there's no point having a list if you don't have the trust in the brand. So it comes back to, right now we all know we're in the trust economy. You need to be working on your brand. And if you're giving value to people every week or however often you're doing it, you're setting the bar above. Google did some research and they found that, if you're spending, it was something like 11 hours with people across 7 touch points and via different like 5 or 6 different channels or something like that, then your trust meter goes way up. So when you do actually get to the point of doing business, it's so much easier. And so all these touch points obviously matter. But anybody who says email is dead just doesn't know how to do it properly.
I like what you said there, leading with value, and then you really enjoy what you're doing, it shows through, that's for sure. And then when somebody needs you, they'll be tapping you on the shoulder. If you keep on being in front of them, helping them, even though you don't know, you could put a bit of content around a how-to thing online, or have you thought of this perspective, this is what I'm seeing perspective, to really give them some insight into what's happening with their particular niche. It's a no-brainer if you're that key person of influence.
It's another really good example, like your bike analogy, carrying the CVs. Email, you can't make email work or any other platform work by going to GPT and Claude and saying, write me an email. It needs to land at the other end so that person knows that, sure, you might have got some help from AI to clean up your grammar or whatever it is, but you need to originate the ideation of what you're going to send to them so that they can see it's really you. And that's the point of difference. Because I don't know about you, but every day I come in now and I can just see all the junk come through. But then I'll see people that I've been following for a while, or I respect what they do and I know that they're going to give me value. I'll open it. And so that's where AI is widening the gap, because the lazy people are going, well, let's just slam out 100, emails on this, that. Oh, what topic should I write for my market? Oh yeah, now write me all those emails and now just put them in a scheduler and off they go. Not really going to get you much cut through, probably going to get you into the spam bucket. But if you respect your audience and understand what they want and write to their exact pain points from personal view and give personal stories so they know that it's really you, then you'll cut through. So it's another really good example of AI. This is the market I am in. I'm looking to learn as much as I can about AI. Every morning, send me a quick snippet on what are the top 5 things happening in AI in my industry today. And then just get that quick snippet every morning. And you could set it up so that it has links to videos or articles for you, and almost create your own bespoke email, or however you want to get it, through Slack or whatever. Just a 5-minute thing that you just check in and keep your finger on the pulse. There's plenty of other emails and things out there too, but I quite like the idea of creating your own bespoke one for your, I'm a recruiter in this market. These are the challenges I have in my business. Send me anything that you think is going to be relevant for my learning.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I've got one that sends at 6:30 in the morning every day around my calendar what's happening today. Then I put a few quirky things around, funny quotes or silly quotes, or as you said, you can bespoke it to what you want to hear. to make your day more productive, but also keep you accountable as well. I think it's very easy to put up in the day-to-day and I'll get to that thing tomorrow. But if you don't have somebody reminding you to do that thing, then it becomes the following day or the following week, or maybe next month I'll look at that part of the business that I need to automate. We'll put some AI agentic plays into it.
Loved our chat, Rodger. I think that we should do more of these for our listeners. Well, obviously, we're getting our guests in and that's amazing, but I think it's good just to sit back and have a chat and see what's happening. You guys can listen to it while you're cooking your veggies at night or going for a run with you, our dulcet tones in your ears. And also, too, if there's topics that you guys want us to dive more into, let us know. We've got our finger on the pulse to plenty of guests and plenty of people that we can invite. So if you're sitting there thinking, I wish they'd talk about this, let us know and we will.
Yeah. That's been real fun, BK. Thanks so much for jumping on. It was a good suggestion the other day for you to say, hey, let's just do a roundtable, a recap of where things are up to April 2026.
Terrific. Loved it. Thanks, Rodger. See you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for your support.